It sure is. All right, last studio here for Angular. We're going to go ahead and get on started. 30.7 Studio Angular Part 3. And this studio must combine data binding and attribute directives to dynamically change the appearance or behavior of HTML elements. 30.7.1 Getting Started. The studio uses the same mission planner repository as Angular Studio Part 2. There's no need to fork and clone new starter code. Open your work from Part 2 in Visual Studio Code. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a Visual Studio Code. Let me do a file, the window up here. I'll break it down there in a moment. There we go. And if I look at the correct one, oh, it's going to be in Part 2, isn't it? File. Let me go and open it. Open it up in Visual Studio Code. Okay, Angular practice. Which one do they want us to open up? Same mission planner repository. Mission planner. Okay, it is that one. Cool. Open that. There we go. Now I got it working. All right, this is what we had previously. Cool, that is all open. I believe it, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on there, Angular-LC 101 mission planner, is this the correct project we should be in? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yeah, I believe so.
Thank you. All right. That being said, one is all done then. For Part 2, okay. Run get status, see if you have any committed work. If so, if you do, go ahead and resolve it. So we'll just go and take a look at that real quick. So terminal, which is up here, and I'm gonna have to cd into that. So cd into Angular practice, cd into our, what was it? It was C101. There we go. Awesome. Let's go and see what we got here. Get status, anything? No, I do. So I'm going to do get add period, get commit dash m completed part 2. There we go. Get status. Awesome. All right. I'm not going to push my work. It's going to stay right here on my local machine. So we are all good there for the Studio 2. Get branch. I don't think there's a part 3, right? R-A-N-C-H. Nope. Looks like Studio 2. Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and hop on back here to our studio and get started. Check out the Studio 3 branch. There is a Studio 3. I didn't see it. All right. Well, in order to do that, let's say get fetch then. Let's see what we got here. Get branch. We need to make the Studio 2. Did you all have to make a Studio 3 branch?
I didn't have to make it, but I did have to do the -F to force it to open.
Okay. I'm gonna go take a look at something because I really want to make sure that I get that contents. Let's go back down. What I'm gonna do is go over here, Studio Part 2, take a look at the mission planner repository. So what I'm gonna do is go over here to the GitHub. Up here in the top of the right, we should see those branches. Okay, so Studio 3 is there. Why can't I see that on my end? Is there a git fetch all option I'm missing right now? But we'll go ahead and do it. Get checkout origin. Usually I do a force.
Yeah, Sean had me do the -F for force.
That's really weird.
On mine.
What am I missing right now? I'll try that. Get fetch, and then was that command get fetch dash dash all. Let's see if we can do that. Wow, really does not want to work with me.
For mine, I just did get checkout Studio 3. I didn't put origin, and it worked.
Let's see. Get check out. Okay. Don't like that. So let me take a look and see if Gits has it. Okay, it does have it. Okay, so we should be fine then. Okay. We should be good here. Awesome. Okay. So it looks like if we're doing from the CLI, then yeah, just doing a git checkout Studio 3 is good. But also, if you wanted to, you could have came over here and checked it out via the UI if you wanted to. So it does look like this one has all of it. I don't know why. I guess I've never really had to do that through the CLI, but the CLI does not have any of the origins on there unless it's already checked out. So sorry about any of that confusion there. But over here is what we got. So awesome. Let's hop back over to our studio now that we have Studio 30 branch. I'll run pm install download the dependencies. So they're gonna make us do that. A common practice also is to remove all of the node modules beforehand too. Just wanted to throw that out there as a little side note. So rm-rf node modules, it's just common practice on my side, just because if your package JSON, which is where all of your dependencies come from, changes where a version number increases or decreases for a specific module, it can throw off stuff. Launch code, I'm sure, has already seen all of that and disregarded against it. I'm just letting you guys all know that is just a common practice. You'll see me do it here just because I've been bitten by that quite a few times. So just ingrained in my memory. All right, npm is going to run. I'm going to go back over to our directions, see what else we need to do. Number 5, run ngserve to build and serve the project. And then it gives us the actual view. So we'll go ahead and do that in just a moment whenever this npmi. Stuff. Anyone got a fun fact today that they want to share while our stuff is installing? Or jokes?
White chocolate is barely chocolate. It's mostly butter.
Ooh, is that what makes it white?
I have no idea. I just realized that's why I don't like white chocolate. It's not even chocolate.
It doesn't really taste like much chocolate. Like I feel like it. I don't know. I thought it would be like white cocoa bean or something like there in there. That makes sense.
But I like
It's
white
bitter,
chocolate.
pure.
Is it
Yeah.
pure?
Pure
Has anyone ever
chocolate
had-
is bitter though.
Right, I was gonna say, has anyone had an actual chocolate before? Stuff's nasty.
I know a guy who eats straight raw chocolate as a snack. I'm like, you're weird.
What? That is not a snack. That's nasty. It's so bitter.
Like, hang on, chocolate or like 100% cacao?
Baking or 100% real pure chocolate. Like not like, I forget what they actually call it. It's like, is it baking
like-
chocolate or something?
I thought it was cacao or cow, whatever.
Well, that's
you
the
gotta really-
bean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like unsweetened chocolate is so bitter. Okay, so we're compiled. Let's hop back into it. Don't worry, I'm sure we're gonna have another ng serve here soon to have another chit chat. All right, we have a local host. For all right, looks like our stuff did hop up here properly. Cool. Looking like candidates, equipment, possible experiments. Nothing in crew. We got to see a cargo hold of 0 to 10. All right. So it looks like that is what we were supposed to be seeing. Everything looks a-okay to continue. So let's do that. Mission name and carrier rocket are still editable, but the functionality for the crew, equipment, and experiments have been removed. All right. On to 30.7.2. I'll time out right here. Any questions? Because I know we hit some issues here and there. Any questions on this so far? 30.7.2, Part 1, Select Cargo. We want to add items from the equipment list to the cargo hold, but we must not exceed the values of the maximum allowed mass or max item variables. The interactive equipment list will eventually behave as follows. 1, clicked on a cargo hold button adds the select equipment to the cargo hold array and updates the cargo mass variable. Number 2, as items are added to the hold, their names should appear in the cargo hold sections of the page. Also, the mass mass and hold mass budget remaining in spots filled values should update. Number 3, the add cargo hold buttons should be disabled if all the spots in the hold have been filled. And then 4, the mass of the particular item will push the cargo hold over maximum allowed mass. That item's button should be disabled. All right, this is just giving us a bunch of stuff. Nothing really too fun here. The last 5, if cargo mass comes within 200 grams of maximum allowed mass, then the mass budget remaining should turn red. The following sections will guide you through completing part 1. All right, let's go ahead and do that. 30.7.2.1, code the add item function. Open equipment.component.ts and create the add item function. So let's go ahead and start doing that before you even read the first one. So we're going to open up equipment.component.ts. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm in the wrong project. So let's go into the right one. There we go. Source. We're going to go down to the app, and it's set in the equipment. So equipment.ts, because that's where our functions go. And in here, it said that we needed to provide that. And it even gives us that little comment. So let's go ahead and do that. To create a function in a class, we don't actually use the keyword function. We just write the name of the function. So we say add item. Just like that. Awesome. Hard part done. Let's actually see what we need to do with this. Number 1, it should take an equipment object as a parameter. All right, let's go ahead and take that and should. Okay, so we just need to talk about parameters here first. So it said, sorry, equipment object as a parameter. So add item, this one should be equipment. Called equipment item. Awesome. And then we can say it is an object. So it looks like equipment items are an object array. Each individual thing is an object, so we'll just put object in there as its type. Remember TypeScript, we need to put our types in there. So add item should take an equipment item in as its parameter. So let's continue on. Number 2, it should add the equipment object to the cargo hold array. All right, I haven't even seen cargo hold array, so let's go ahead and see that first. Cargo hold array looks like cargo hold right here, and it is an object array. Everything checks out, so we need to add this equipment item to this guy. So let's go ahead and do that. To call to a class variable, what keyword do we use to start with?
This dot.
Very good. This dot and then cargo hold. Awesome. After that, we need to add something to an array. What keyword, or excuse me, what function do we do to do this?
Dot push.
Dot push. Very, very good. Awesome. And then we're going to put in what's ever passed into that parameter, which the name of that parameter is equipment item. Awesome. Let's hop back. Number 2 has been finished, at least we think it has. Number 3, it should increase the cargo mass variable by the mass of the new equipment. All right, so cargo mass, it needs to be increased by how much weight that equipment item is. Cargo mass looks like it's a number, so that again checks out. So the next thing it wants us to do is it wants us to increase cargo mass by whatever the equipment weight is. So we need to add this dot cargo mass. We need to add something to it before we reassign it. It said it needed the mass of the equipment item, which is an object. Again, for reference, we need to see what these equipment items even look like. How do I know what the property keys are unless I actually find an object for reference? And that's what we need to do. We need to come up here to the equipment items and take a look at this object. It has 2 types, or it has 2 keys. First key being name, and the second one being mass. Now, if we need to add the mass of this equipment item, what key am I going to be calling to? Well, mass. Mass looks pretty good to do that. So that's what I'm going to do. Equipment item is my equipment object that I can refer to. So I say equipment item dot, and now I need to call to that specific key that has the mass. That key's name is mass. So I say mass. Now you might get a little bit of an issue here, excuse me, that mass doesn't exist on type. Don't worry about that. If you get that, it is just TypeScript being TypeScript. So that's what we're going to have here. We can also simplify this expression by taking out this, putting in that plus equals. This will append or add this to the pre-existing value of cargo mass. There we go.
I just wanted to mention real quick, Kyle, to avoid TypeScript yelling at you about the mass, you can use bracket notation and a string key, and it won't yell at you.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking, like, how did I get around that last time? I'm going to go ahead and do that too, just so we don't have to see those red squiggles. Thank you very much, Colin. Absolutely. So we're going to put those brackets around there and put those quotes in there. If you're ever wondering how to get around that completely, what you just introduced, and we won't talk about it too much in depth today, but you will introduce interfaces to tell TypeScript what this equipment item actually looks like in general. So TypeScript actually knows what's going to be in those objects. But for the time being, we're just going to use bracket notation.
And should it be equipment item or equipment items like up above?
Equipment items refers to the array of objects.
Right.
While in add item, we need to take in an equipment item.
Okay.
We take in this equipment item's mass and then append it to or add it to the existing value of cargo mass. So we need to actually reference equipment item here, because we need the individual item that we're talking about or that's passed in to the add item function.
Okay.
That's a great question there. All right, any other questions about this code before we move on? All right, let's keep going then. Number 4, it should return true or false depending on whether cargo mass is within 200 kilograms of the maximum allowed mass. So, return true or false depending on whether the cargo mass is, okay, so this is for the add item. So it should return true or false depending on the cargo mass, okay.
The 2,000 is the max.
2,000 is the max?
It's on the code.
Okay, okay. Awesome. The first thing I want to really pay attention to is that it should return true or false. It's giving me what I should be returning. In addition, it's giving me a return type. So immediately what I want to do is come back to my function and add the return type. So I'm going to put Boolean there. When I do that, it's going to give me a red squiggly saying that I'm not actually returning a Boolean yet. And what I need to tell TypeScript is be patient. I will do that eventually. Don't you worry. If we want that red squiggly away, what we can just do is return an arbitrary value of true or false, and that will go away. So now that we know our return type, let's go ahead and we are going to do the portion where we can actually return true or false. So cargo mass is within 200 kilograms of allowed mass kilograms. So how can we exactly do that? We can first, if we need to do a conditional, we can start out with if to start writing these. So if this dot cargo mass is within 200 kilograms of maximum allowed mass, how can we exactly do this? Well, what we can do is we can add 200 to this dot cargo mass to give it that 200 range. And now if it's greater than or equal to this dot maximum allowed mass, we need to return true. Otherwise, we should return false. This is how we can do a range or check to see if a value is in range of a maximum. You can also do the exact same for a minimum if you wanted to as well. This is how we can see if two numbers are within a range of each other. Any questions on that approach? All right. To simplify this even further, we don't actually have to do an if and else. We can actually take all 5 of these lines here, including those curly brackets, take this and actually just return this expression right here. When this is evaluated, it will produce a true or false. So we'll evaluate to a true or false, and then that's what we return, that true or false that's from that expression. So if we wanted to simplify a little bit further, this is what we could do. But if you want the if statement route, that's completely fine also. Just showing you one step further if you wanted to take it there. All right.
Would you want to show explicitly casting it to a Boolean?
This will so it's just because we have a conditional operator right here, it will always be a Boolean.
Yes. Smart.
No, absolutely. Yeah, great question there. Yeah, luckily this one will always be a Boolean, but if something did evaluate to a number or a string and there was a little bit of risk there, definitely cast it if you want to make sure. But if you're somebody who wants to be super safe, you can also just cast it to a Boolean just to make sure. But we know that it should always be a Boolean there. Awesome. All right, that was done for that section. Final ask for questions. All right, let's keep moving forward then. 30.7.2.2, make the add to cargo hold buttons work. Open the equipment.component.html and do the following. Number 1, include the add to cargo hold button with each list item. All right, let's go ahead and first take a look at this HTML and see what we're working with. Equipment.html or component.html here. So we are looking for the equipment section. Well, what's indicating me to that to be equipment section, oh, let me go back and take a look at our stuff. Cargo hold. All right, we need to include the add to cargo hold button with each list item. So my question is, all right, here's our list item and our name. And okay, so down here is the display box of everything there. One last thing I want to do is I want to go back over to our actual rendition and see what it's talking about. So I'm assuming it's this section here that is talking about. So these are all the equipments. And according to our rendering, it looks like it wants that button next to it. So cool. So what I'm trying to do is really find my area to start with. This is one of the challenging parts, but also the best step to start with when trying to figure out where to write your code. Find the best area to begin in. And so it looks like we need to place this button right here. I'll hop back to that code, and that location is right here in code. So this is where I need to add the button. My question is, though, where the heck is that button? So let me go ahead and find that. Do we have a button, or are we just adding a button? Is that what it's saying? Okay. Getting more and more abstract here, launch code. So you want me to add a button. Got it. All right, so no button component, just a button in general. So let's go ahead and do that. Button, add, what was it? Add to cargo hold. Cool. Do that. I'm gonna put a little space here just to make it look a little bit pretty. Come back over to our Angular. And now we have our add to cargo hold button placed there. Click on it, absolutely nothing happens, but our button is placed. Awesome. So the button has been placed. Let's move on to number 2. Add a click event to each button that calls the add item function and passes the selected equipment as the argument. So a key to this is the selected equipment. Remember, at this point, equipment is still an object. It's not just a name. It has values to it, the name and the mass. So that's very important to remember as we're moving forward here. So the add item function is what needs to be called to when the click event occurs. So let's do that. In our button, we need to add the click event. In Angular, we add parentheses to denote that. So we say click here, equal, and then inside of here, we place the function we want to call. The function we want to call is add function, or excuse me, add item. And then inside of the parentheses is where we pass that parameter. Parameter we want to pass in is the item or the equipment item that we want to add. Can anyone tell me that variable name this HTML is working with that contains that equipment item in it?
Item?
Absolutely right. Item is up here. We see that in the ng4, so very good call out. It is getting it out of the list of equipment items that, if we remember, is in the TS file up here. So knowing that, over here, item, is as it iterates, is each one of those individual items as it works its way through the array. So you're absolutely right. We need to include item inside of these parentheses. There we go. Now, to see if number 2 works, if we click add item, we might get some things back on the UI, but what I like to do always is come down here and I want to console log my equipment item to see if I get it out in the console itself. So I'm going to save that. We're going to come back over to our UI, and as we always do, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. So I'm going to right click, press inspect, go over to our console. And we're going to go ahead and see this in action. I'm going to click duct tape to add it. I see in my console, I get an output of name of duct tape and a mass of 0.5. It looks like this function and event handler are working. So that being said, also, we come down here and we see that the cargo hold has 1 out of 10 spots filled, and our mass and hold right now is 0.5 kilograms. We have nothing in the budget mass remaining just yet. So I'm going to get to that soon. So that looks like it was all a part, or yeah, number 2 here. Any questions before we move on to number 3? All right. Bind the disabled attribute to the following conditions. If all of the cargo hold spots are full, cargo hold.length equals max items, disable the button. So we need to disable all of the buttons, it looks like. Oh, sorry. Okay, I see what it's talking about. If the cargo hold spots are full, disable the button. So all of the buttons would need to disable that. So I'm going to take that conditional, and that's what we're going to do. So I need to go back to the button, which is in equipment.component.html. Come up to the button, and just like I did in lecture, I'm going to be putting my attributes on individual lines here, just so you all can view it as well, because my text is a little bit big here. Right here, I'm going to add a second attribute to the button element. That is going to be the disabled attribute. That is going to be using a conditional that Angular is going to power. If Angular is going to be involved in any attribute, what character do I use on both sides of my attribute's name?
Double curly bracket.
It's an attribute, so we're not going to be using the curly brackets. Which one are we going to be using?
Square bracket.
The square brackets. Remember, in attributes, we use the square brackets, but if you want to insert information generally into your HTML, such as down here, that's when we do the double curly brackets. So in the square brackets, I then provide the attribute I want to manipulate using Angular. That attribute is disabled. I say equal, and then inside of here, because I use those square brackets, I can actually place JavaScript inside of a string format. They provided us that string. So here is what I wanted to paste. So let's go and see if this works properly. All right, I'm gonna refresh just in case, and we're gonna just add 10 waters there. Once I get to 10, it looks like everything has been disabled. So awesome, we're well on our way here. Let's go ahead and move on to part B. If adding the item to the cargo hold would exceed maximum allowed mass, disabled the button. All right, so this one's a little bit more fun. This is more individualistic to each item that's in there, because if we look at our UI, I can add a lot more duct tape before I can add food, meaning that food is a little bit more heavy than duct tape. So all these items have their own mass. So this is more fun. Let's go ahead and see this. So this button needs to be disabled if our cargo hold.length is equal to max items, or if its weight would exceed the maximum allowed weight of the cargo hold. What I just said when I was saying these conditionals out loud was the word or. That being said, that's what I have to include here to chain these conditionals together. So it needs to, if the length is equal to the max items, or the item dot mass plus the maximum, let me go and get that actual name there, maximum allowed mass. Oh, sorry, no, that's not what I want cargo mass. If item plus cargo mass is greater than the maximum allowed mass, then it needs to be disabled. So again, we need to check to see if we added this item, its mass, like food, plus the pre-existing cargo mass, or whatever's already in there, we add that together. If it's like 2001 kilograms, is it greater than the maximum allowed mass? Well, in that case, yes, because this is 2000. So it should be disabled. So this is a quick check to see, again, if those numbers will exceed our maximum expectation. So let's go and see if this works. We're taking a lot of food here. I'm taking in maybe some of that. Oh, I can't take in any more of those satellites. So let's take in some water. Can't take any more water. Can't take anything. Looks like I hit right at 2000. I was really lucky, actually. Now I'm kind of concerned. If you ever feel like you got lucky in coding, try it again. That is rare. I do that one. Okay, now I'm just literally hitting these numbers. I'm realizing now that that math works out. All right. Let's get some duct tape in there. Cameras. Oh, and I'm at 10 spots now. Okay, I'm just doing bad at numbers. But it looks like it is disabling depending on that mass actually there. So it looks like we are good as of right now. So I'll hop back over the code. Any questions on what we just saw here? Anything. All right. I guess we need to keep going then. Number 4, if active, make the button an attractive color. Ooh, interesting. All right. If active. So I guess all the time it has to be an attractive color. To you all, what is an attractive color?
Green.
Green. Green it is. All right. So if active. I think what we need to do here. Anybody got an approach for this one? I don't want to go too much in depth.
My brain says eventless or event.
Well, so there's a couple. There's one way that I'm in particular wanting to do, but I didn't know if there's a shorthand way in Angular to do so. I can always do a flag, but that's doing a lot more. So real quick, let's go and just see if there's anything in there. Anybody else got that approach? If fill it out to me. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick look at see if there is any conditionals for that. Yeah, oh, yeah, I get that, but okay. I mean, if they just want me to do flags, I'll do flags. Interesting one.
Kyle, I remember they want us to use the class active button.
Class active. What do you mean by class active button, I guess?
It's just like you taught us in the class. Like, is this class turned on or off based on the condition?
Thank you. Okay, I was like wondering what they wanted us to do with that. Thank you. Yeah, let's go and do that. Perfect. Yeah, we will do it that way. Awesome. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so anyone wants to be an attractive color. So you said attractive color is green.
Yes, green.
So there's a cool green somewhere in here. Dark slate green, steel green. Ooh. Lawn green. Neat. All right. Let's do some lawn green. All right. So what I did in here is I included our class. So I just called it isActive. Again, arbitrary name. That's what I chose. I come over here to our equipment.component.html. And so in here, now what we can do is set the actual class first by saying this is the class I want it to be. So class.isActive. But then, as Sean reminded me, we can include on the other or the right-hand side of this portion the conditional in which if it's true, we'll show it as this class. If it's false, it will not provide this class styling to this button. So in here, we can actually provide a conditional. So is it active are both of these portions right here. It's basically the same exact conditional. This means if it's active. So I'm going to save that. And there we go. So we produce that conditional again. Come back over here. Oop, what am I doing? And I have it absolutely backwards. Awesome. Fine. Last studio, and Kyle is absolutely brain dead. So it looks like we have this backwards. So what we can do is actually negate the conditional. If we see that we have it exactly backwards, like what we do here, where all the disabled buttons are the ones colored, what I can do is I can come through here and negate everything. So I say instead of that, I say equal to, it's not equal to. And negation of that is less than or equal to. Let's see how it likes that. There we go. Didn't really get a good view there. So let's go and do this. There we go. Awesome. Looks like we are correctly now showing this class if or if not it is active. All right. I'll be back over to those questions. There we go. Okay. So sorry. So yes, what we did was just negate it. So it looks like for the class is active, it needs to be true to show that it is active. What I was doing was that enough here, I was saying, remember this conditional up here is saying, should it or should it not be disabled? If true, it should be disabled, meaning that it's not active. Think of it as disabled is the opposite of active. So what it needed to do is be, or sorry, what this portion down here needed to be is the exact opposite conditional of up here. The exact opposite of true is false. The exact opposite of any conditional is its negation. It's not form. So that's what I did, is negated it to make it exactly opposite. So it should be the cargo hold length does not equal max items, which means it's 9 or less. And the item mass plus cargo mass should be less than or equal to the maximum allowed mass, meaning that it is still okay to add this item. Nothing's going to go wrong if you click the button. So that's what this conditional right here is saying. Sorry, that one was a little bit tricky and kind of difficult for me to explain. But any questions around what we just saw here?
Instead of having the conditionals, you could just have it like click. Well, they would be conditional anyways, but I was making them functions like is toggle active for class that is active, and then just call the function is toggle active, and then make the conditional in that function in the TS file.
Now, the only thing with that is that if you toggle it, you'll have to toggle them all individually in the TS file. Is that what you're doing?
You have to toggle them all individually?
Because food could be active, meaning being green, while satellite, a heavier object, could be not active. So a single variable that says is toggled or something like that would not suffice for an array of items that's dependent on it.
Well, okay, it is toggle active, but then also bring in the item, like go back from HTML, bring in the item as a parameter to is toggle active with item as a parameter. So
you're calling to the function itself within the HTML for, yes. Okay, so you're placing a function in here instead?
Yes.
That is also possible if you wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, in the end, you're still doing a conditional expression at the very end. Yeah, you can absolutely do that if you want to put that function in there. I like to always send information back to the TS side as much as possible, but I believe this is what they would want to go to in the solution. But if they are doing functions, let me know and I can show that example as well. But yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, great call out there. Awesome. Yeah, feel free to explore. There's always a million ways to code one thing. So I am not always coding it the way you might. All right, any other questions?
Kyle?
Yeah, Sean.
In the real life, is the flag used more instead of this one, the class condition?
It depends. What I would tell you instead is that if you are making a variable within your class, make sure that there is a reason for it. It must have prominent reasoning to be there. You try to stay away from creating too many class variables. So it has to have a really, really important purpose. So if there is a way to actually, and also functions as well, try to keep your classes as lightweight as possible. So if there's something you can do inline that's not extreme or super complex, then I would usually say do it with inline. So to answer your question with are there flags more out there? Yeah, flags are definitely used in the real world, but there should always be a reason that you have a flag variable within your class. But if I'm not getting your question, let me know.
And Kyle, is flag complicated to showcase, or can you show us how it's done?
For a flag for this, for actually doing flags right now, it would be difficult to showcase, and I would not recommend it for an array of items. If there is one down here, we can. Usually you just want a single item, you can do a flag on it. Kind of like what we saw in the buttons today in lecture. That was a flag. Is adopted was a flag.
Oh, it's not like it's just a concept.
Oh, a flag is just a concept. A flag is synonymous for Boolean.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought it was something else.
Yeah, Booleans, or flags are just Booleans. They're yes or no, flags up or down. That's what I mean by flag.
Yeah,
no, great question. I guess I never really explained that. I just started throwing out the word. So yeah, thank you for bringing me back there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So Seema, also I just got your code. It looks like those are correct. So in that case, I would make sure that your add item function is working correctly. All right. So we are gonna have to move a little bit forward here. All right, on to, excuse me, 30.7.2.3, update the cargo hold display. Open equipment.component.html and equipment.component.css and do the following. Add the near max mass class in the CSS file that styles the text to be bold or italics and red. Okay, so equipment.component.html and the CSS. It looks like the first thing we're going to be doing is the class in the CSS file. So let's open up that first, equipment.component.css. Wait a minute. Let me see a little bit closer. Do we? Okay, no. We're good, right? Yeah, okay. All right, near mass. Let's go and keep going here. So to create a class, I add the dot first. There we go. And then it asked us to do two different stylings. The first one is bold or italics text and red text. So bold or italics, what that is actually the text. Oh gosh. Is the text actually transformed? Yeah, it is. Okay. No, what is it? Oh my gosh.
Font.
I'm sorry.
Font and a font style.
It would be, let's see, font style, possibly. Let's see. It is. Oh, okay. So if you want to make it italics, what you do is say font style italics. If you want it to be bold, what you do is you do font weight, and then you can just say bold if you want to do that. So either one. That's how you can do either or. Let's do both. Why not? It said or, so you don't have to pick one, but let's just do both. Then in order to color the text, what you say is color, and we just say red for that. Awesome. All right, so we are good this far. Any questions on that styling there? Let's keep on going. Number 2, bind the class.nearMax mass to a Boolean that will change the style of the mass budget remaining text whenever the cargo mass gets within 200 kilograms of the maximum allowed mass. All right. So let's go ahead and bind this. It said, I'm going to just copy that free code that they gave us to a Boolean that will change the style of mass budget remaining. Let's go find that text. It sounds like it's going to be in the equipment.html. And it looks like mass budget remaining is right here. So it said that we needed to bind this text that it gave us to a Boolean, which goes in within the quotes there, to checking to see if it, let me see, actually read it one more time. Whenever the cargo hold gets within 200 kilograms of the maximum allowed mass. Now remember, that's just a Boolean that we've written before. Remember that Boolean specifically, it was back in our equipment.ts right here. Seeing if the cargo mass is within 200 kilograms of the maximum allowed mass. So what I'm gonna do is just copy this text over, or copy this code over, paste that in there. I am gonna take out this dot because we do not use this in Angular components, only within the classes that the components depend on. So we'll take out this as well. So, cargo mass plus 200, good. Okay, so that should be it. Let's go and see if this works. Hopping back over here, what we're going to do is that we are going to add one of those, and then one of those, and then one of those. We at? All right, look at that. We are in red because we are within 200 kilograms of our maximum. So we are looking pretty good right now. But we still don't have our kilograms calculated, so let's see if we have to do that here soon. So again, to talk about that code, it is the exact same code that we saw in the add item that returns true or false. So continuing on then. Add an empty hold button that clears the cargo hold array and resets cargo mass. All right, let's go and do that first before we read the next sentence, because I think the next sentence is going to make us do even more stuff. So add the empty hold button that clears the cargo hold array and resets cargo mass. Let's go ahead and start doing that. So down here, we need to add the empty hold button right there. All right, thank you so much. So we're going to say button. U-T-T-O-N, there we go. And then click equals, and then we need to clear hold. I'm just, again, create just an arbitrary function name. It needs to clear the hold, so I'm going to call it clear hold. Cool. Let's go see the text for a little bit longer. That clears the cargo hold and resets cargo mass. As a side effect, clearing the hold should reactivate all the buttons and return mass budget remaining to its original style. All right, well, let's first do the first portion. Cargo hold array, clears the cargo hold array and resets cargo mass. Let's do that. If we remember, I placed in this function clear hold here inside of the click event handler. So what I need to do is actually create that function over here. That function name again was clear hold. Open and close parentheses. That function has now been created. What's going to happen here is that I need to clear the cargo hold, and I need to reset the cargo mass. Remember, if you remember up here in add item, both are manipulated to add to it. This one is just going to reset them. So what we do is that we're going to say this dot cargo hold equals to an empty array. So that just cleared the cargo hold. Next, we're going to reset the cargo mass. So we say cargo mass equals 0. Bada bing, bada boom. That is all we need to do there for the clear hold. Let's go and see how this interacts with our site itself. Oh, that's not fun. What am I doing wrong? Unexpected closing tag div may happen when tag is already been closed by another tag. Okay, what's going on with you? Let's hop back over to our component.html. Oh, it's because I never closed my button tag. You're supposed to help me out there. What are y'all doing? Button close. I don't make mistakes. You're supposed to catch them. JK. All right, cool. We gotta close that button. That's it. Let's save this. Hope, fingers crossed. Oh, thankfully, it's all back up again. All right, let's go and see what happens. Let's go and add some things to the cargo hold. It can still be added. Nice. But, oh, I didn't even add anything. Wow, Kyle, you're just not in it today. Get your head in the game, as High School Musical would say. Empty hold here. Let's go ahead and actually add some text so we can see something. Try this again. I'm gonna add that, I'm gonna add that. And look at, there's some things that are brown, not brown out, but disabling out. And so now what I'm gonna do is click empty hold. And it looks like that is all gone. Nothing in our cargo hold and everything is back to normal. Now take close notice on this, because if we go back to our studio, it says in the next sentence, as a side effect, clearing the hold should reactivate all the buttons. So make sure that you note that it's not asking you to change any of these stylings here. It's just really to take notice that this actually happened. So whenever you cleared out that, our page automatically updated to re-enable those buttons and putting everything back to green, basically putting it back to everything how it was beforehand with nothing in the cargo hold. So that's just one thing to call out there. Anything on that portion? Now what I'm really concerned about is that it still hasn't told us to update the, did I miss that? There. I'll be completely honest, I've never done this studio before. We're all going through it for the first time ever together. So I don't remember where this actually adds. Okay, it looks like down here it should be doing that. So if it's not down there, we'll just do that portion. But anyway, let's move on. Are we all good? Everybody okay?
Mine's still gone, even when I put the button on.
Okay. All right. We'll take a closer look at the code here at the very end. Just keep on trying. All right. On a 30.7.2.4 status check, at this point, the equipment component should behave something like, and then, okay, so we are or I'm incorrect, where I should be calculating this mass event remainder. Maybe I just missed that portion. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so it looks like in here, we should be calculating that mass remaining there. So can anyone tell me the equation that I should plug in here? I don't like math. An idea? I'm trying to calculate how much mass we can still put into this rocket, into this cargo hold. Let's take a look at it real quick. Let's go over to our class. We need to know one thing. Okay, what's our maximum? And how much do we already have? That will give us the difference, which is how much more can we put in there. So my maximum is 2,000, maximum allowed mass. And how much I have right now is whatever's in my cargo mass, because that's what add item is adding to. So the expression here should be maximum allowed mass minus cargo mass. Not only can we put in variable names, but we can also put in expressions here, mathematical expressions, as well as in the double curly bracket, or double curly brackets. So let's go ahead and see that in at work. Flush that just in case. We're going to add just a few things. There we go. So we see that it's 155, and now our mass is 1845. We're going to add a few more things, a little bit more food, and now we see that it's actually in red. Awesome, with that difference still there. So this looks more like the GIF that was given to us in our studio. Cool. Doing well so far. Any questions up to this point? All right, so that's to be sure to commit and push your work. I'm not gonna, I can commit real quick, but I'm not gonna push it. So I will go ahead and Control C there. What I'm gonna do is get add period, get commit dash M completed first parts of studio. There we go. All right, that has been done. That being said, on to 30.7.2, or sorry, 30.7.3, part 2, select crew members. We want to add up 3 astronauts, or sorry, we want to add up to 3 astronauts to the crew mission, and we want to do this by clicking on their names rather than creating more buttons. The interactive candidates list will eventually behave as follows and gives us all of those. We will go through that, and we'll probably see a GIF at the very end, so I'm not going to read all through these. So let's go into this next section. 30.7.3.1, code the add crew member function. Open the crew.component.ts and create the add crew member function. So let's go ahead and do that. So that is going to be in the crew TS file. Go up here to crew, go to our TS file. And I'm going to now create the function add crew member. Open and close parentheses because I don't know about any parameters just yet. And there we go. My function has been begun. Let's keep going. It should take a candidate object as a parameter. Let's go ahead and do that. Candidate object. Candidate being one of these candidates up here, I'm sure. So it looks like that's a little object there. So in my parameters, I should say candidate. And then its type should be object. All right. We've seen this in the previous section, so I'm going to go a little bit faster there. Number 2, it should check if the candidate is already a part of the crew. Now, this is a tricky one. Not tricky, but more fun. More fun. We're going to call it fun. We need to see if this candidate is actually already contained in the crew itself. And anyone tell me an approach we can do to do that? What should I use? We need to validate to see if this candidate is already in our crew object array. What should I use to validate that?
Dot includes
So dot includes is good for strings.
three.
So an array of strings, but we have an array of objects, which is a little bit more tricky. What do we do to usually check on things in arrays? What do we use? We're working with arrays. In general, what kind of tool do we use?
Index
For loop.
A for loop. Very good. We're going to be using a for loop in this case, or we can. There's also different approaches, but we'll use a for loop in this one. So that's what we'll do now. What we'll say is for let I equal 0, I less than this dot crew dot length, and then I plus plus. Now we're looping over each crew member inside of this class variable up here for crew. If my this dot crew of I, now I got the object back, I want to see if the name is the same. So I say name is equals to the candidate dot name. Of course, we're going to go and do that bracket notation like we have been to get rid of those red squiggles on those objects. There we go. If the names are equal, then we do not want to add this crew member. So we simply will just return out of the function. So we'll exit this function right at this line if this conditional is true. So this is the first portion. This is just validation. We haven't even actually manipulated any objects, or excuse me, manipulated any variables just yet. Just validation. So let's see what next we need to do. But real quick, any questions on this portion? Okay. In that case, let's go ahead and continue. If the crew size is less than 3 and the candidate is not a part of the crew, then their data should be added to the crew array. All right, I'm going to take this in just for my notes. So if the crew size is less than 3 and the candidate is not already a part of the crew, then their data should be added. Then their data should be added to the crew array. So one of these two things are already done. The candidate is not part of the crew by line 35, because if they were, it would have returned on line 31. So the next check we need to do is to see if the crew size is less than 3. So that's what we can do here. Say if this dot crew dot length is greater than 3. Actually, we can do greater than or equal to 3. Excuse me about that. And then if that, and then we return. We get out of that function. Remember, this portion up here is all dealt with this. So if both of these, if we get down to line 39, that means neither of these if statements were triggered. That means the validation has been passed. Meaning now we can manipulate our variables, aka we can add their data to the crew array. How we add to an array is we say this dot, the name of the array, which is crew, dot push. And then we add it in there. So we'll say candidate, just like that. Awesome. Any questions about this approach? Or what we just did here for this validation? Okay. We're getting a little bit tougher now. like I said, I've never done this studio before. This is some extra stuff. This is good. If you have a headache, you're doing the right thing. You're thinking a lot, and I understand. I'm getting a headache over here. It's like, okay, they're being very needy in this last part. All right, let's keep on moving forward. Finally, number 4, if the candidate is already a part of the crew, then their data should be removed from the crew array. What? If the candidate is already a part of the crew, then their data should be removed from the crew array. Interesting.
That doesn't make sense to me.
That is a very intriguing functionality for this function. If the candidate is a part of the crew, then their data should be removed from the crew array. Okay. If that is the case, then where would we need to do that? So that is pretty interesting. That's a little bit further away than what you'd see in the real world, but we will abide by their instructions because fortunately we're not the boss. I'm not the boss. We got to follow weird boss's rules. So let's go ahead and do that. Where do we know if the individual already exists in the array? That answer is inside of this if statement. If this if statement triggers, then the candidate exists in the crew array. So here is where we can remove them. Why I like it here is that not only do we know that they're in the array, but we know exactly where they are in the array. Now what I'm about to do here is a little bit past, or not past, it's a little bit what I told you not to do, but there's a small caveat on here why it's acceptable. So let's go through that. What I mean by what not to do, I don't typically recommend manipulating arrays within the for loop. You do not want to manipulate arrays within the for loop. If you have already done that before, you know why. It's because your indexes get thrown off and you're going to get really weird results. So what I'm going to do here, I'll explain why I'm doing it. So what I'm going to say is that this dot crew dot splice at index I and delete 1. So what we just did is removed that candidate from the crew array. So again, we do not ever want to manipulate an array within a for loop unless you return right afterwards. That is the only time it's acceptable. So you may manipulate the array as long as you return right afterwards. Again, this is more of a logical error if it's not done correctly than a syntactual error. So you won't get a read back from JavaScript or anything. You're just going to see really weird results if you don't return right after manipulating the array inside of the for loop. So this is how we can remove that candidate if they're in the array. Why we would kick them out if we try to add them twice, I don't know, but that's what it asked. So questions about that? Okay, let's keep moving forward then. Update the candidates list. Open the crew.component.html and crew.component.css and do the following. Number 1, add a click event to each li element that calls to the add crew member function and then passes the selected candidate as the argument. Let's go ahead and do that. What I want to do is come back over here to the crew.component.html and find that li item that it's talking about. Looks like the li item, the list item it's talking about is right here. And it wants us to add a click event that calls to the add crew member, there we go. The add crew member function and pass in the member that it's talking about. Whatever is happening with that li, whatever's happening on that line. Remember, we're going through a list of candidates here. The individual candidate is called member in this example. So we pass in member into this function. And we save that. Awesome. Number 2, add a selected class in the CSS file that styles the text to be a different color from the other list items. Okay, add a selected class in the CSS file. Let's go and do that. Add a selected CSS file. So we go over to the CSS file here, and we're going to call it selected. We do a dot because it wanted to be a class. Oh, actually, it wants to be down here. The dot selected. And the name's in a different color. So color, anybody got a color they want the name to be? Who's got a good color out there? Favorite color?
Orange.
Orange. I like that. All right, there we go. It's going to be orange. I think that'll show up enough. Yeah. All right. So our selected is orange. Text color. Remember to set that in CSS. It's just color. All right. So we added the selected class CSS that styles the text to be a different color from the other list items. Bind the class dot selected to a Boolean statement that will change the color of a candidate's name when they are selected or deselected in the crew. All right. So in that case, we'll go over to here to the component.html. And let's say class equals selected. And then we need to place a conditional here. Now, this one's going to be a little intriguing how we can actually do this one if we can do anything with inline. So we need to see if the candidate is actually inside of the array. For this one, we might want to add a function in there that checks. Does anyone do an inline conditional in order to finish this one? All right. Why I want to do a function inside of the TS file to return a Boolean, yes or no, and it should be selected, is because we're dealing with objects. If we're just doing strings, that's fine. We can just do a dot includes as a conditional, but objects are a little bit more complex. So let's go ahead and do a function in here that we'll just call as is candidate. Did I spell that right? No, I did not. BID selected. And then we'll pass in the candidate object. And now what it's going to return is a Boolean, true or false. So, because I'm a lazy developer, I'm going to borrow some code from somewhere up above, aka right here. What I need to do is loop through each of my crew members in my crew array within this TS file and see if that candidate that's passed in here is actually, well, exists. So if the names are equal, then clearly the crew member is in there. I'm going to take out this pre-existing code. So if the names are equal, then I'm going to return true. The candidate is selected. If the for loop doesn't find them in the crew array, then I'm going to return false. So this was just a quick check to see if the candidate object exists inside of that candidate array or that crew array. So now that I've created that function, now I need to call to it is candidate selected. What I do is I pass in the member, again, if we remember from that ng4, that we pass in also right here, it's powered by this, pass it into that function there. Now, the fun question is, does it work? Let's go and see if that's true. Oh, we knew I don't have ng-serve running. How is everybody doing out there? I won't even ask for a fact right now. I just want to know how everyone's holding up. Yeah, has anyone just zoned out yet? I completely get it. It's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably one of the tougher studios we have ever. I mean, granted, it's the last one, right? But it is one of the tougher ones I've ever seen. And again, I've never done this one. It's like, wow, they are wanting everything. All right, but hey, you're all sticking through it, so stay in there. It's all going to be recorded. It doesn't need to stick right now. You have time for that. So let's go ahead and keep on going. Everything's compiled. Let's go back over here. We're going to refresh. Looks like it's all good. I'm going to come back over to candidates. Oh, look at that. Oh, yes, it's working. It's turning gold. Oh, and that's why I was like, why isn't that one selecting after that? Because, Kyle, you added that validation. Can only be, very good, 3 astronauts out there. Neat. And I like the orange. Good job on the orange selection. I like that. Looks cool. All right. Looks like this is working correctly. Let's go and see our part 3. Okay, that was it for that section. So any other questions about this? So now I see why they wanted to do like the delete if it's already there. Okay, it's a toggle. Nifty. All right. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else at all?
Can you go back to the is candidate selected on the crew components for TS?
Right here.
Yeah,
Yep.
that, yeah.
All right. Let's keep on going here. Any other questions? All righty. Okay, bonus missions too. Oh my gosh, you even have bonus missions. It's gonna be a big one. All right, 30.7.3.3, update the crew list. When the crew size reaches 3, the heading should change to crew full. So add a mouse over and a mouse out event to the LI tags to determine if the mouse pointer is currently over a name in the crew list. All right, so when the crew size reaches 3, the heading should change to crew full. Oh, interesting. Okay. I was like, wonder where they're going with this. So let's go and start with number 1. When the crew size reaches 3, the heading should change to crew full. Let's go ahead and find out what they want to do with that. So in HTML here, it says the heading should change to crew full. Is that what they wanted? Okay, yeah. And it even gives us a little bit of a note here. So add a span tag to display full when the crew reaches 3. So let's do that. Span. And that span there. In this, additionally, I believe what we can do is ngIf then equals to crew.length is equal to 3. Remove this comment here. Awesome. Let's save that and let's see if this works. Come back over here. I'm gonna add 3, and there we go. So what we need to do again was a conditional to see if our crew length is equal to 3, and then show this span if so. To determine if we want to show an element or not, we remember back to our part 2 where we use the ngIf attribute. So asterisk ngIf. And then we place a conditional within that string. If it is equal to 3, we display full. Awesome. Hopping back over here. Looks like it changes depending on that numeric value. Cool. Let's hop into the next portion, because I think this is going to get a little bit more fun here. Add a mouse over and mouse out events to the LI tags to determine if the mouse pointer is currently over a name in the crew list. Okay, then what do we need to do is my question. Remember, is selected by moving the mouse over their names. Okay, so that's what it is. So we'll go ahead and add that first, and then we'll read number 3. Okay, so coming up here, this is where our candidates are. What I did before, I'm going to place these attributes on separate lines, just so we can see everything going on here. There we go. All right, so what I wanted to do is do a mouse over event. I'm going to leave that empty quotes for just a moment. And then a mouse out, I believe it said. Empty quotes, let's see. Yep, mouse over, mouse out. So right now, what I'm gonna do is write this to the same function, and it's not gonna be created yet. I'm gonna say is hovered. And is hovered. Hovered is a very specific word in the event world, where it just means your mouse is over something. It's hovering over something. So mouse over means it is being hovered over, and mouse out usually means it is no longer going to be hovered out. So that is what hover means. So we have created those 2 events that are pointing to the same function. And this one, number 3, is, I believe, going to tell us what we need to do with it. So number 3, if a crew member is selected by moving the mouse over, if a crew member is selected by moving the mouse over their name, use an image tag with the ngIf to display a photo of the astronaut below the crew list. Bind the .photo property of the astronaut to the source attribute. When the mouse pointer moves off of a name, the photo should disappear. Okay. This one is extremely tough. Did anyone complete this section? If not, air high five. You just don't want to tell me, air high five if you got this. They really are just being tricky today. Let's do this. Okay. So, like we said, if the mouse is over something and it's hovering over it, we need to display a photo. Let's talk in a very generic sense. We need to display a photo. When they move the mouse out, we take away the photo. Now, my question to you is, where the heck is this photo? Well, let's take a look at that. We go over to the crew.component.ts. Remember that in these candidates, they included a photo here. So the answer is, and this is a very small, remember, we got to pick up on these hints to actually get to the solution. So the photo that they want to display is inside of the object of the candidate. So this one, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. We get to do so many cool things today. All right. So the photo is here. So the contents or the information that we need to display is locked away in the component or the candidate object. So what that's telling me is that I need to pass, if I go back over to our crew.component.html, we need to pass in the candidate into this is hovered, again, the function that doesn't create yet, or isn't created yet, into here, candidate. Or excuse me, member, it's gonna be member. Just made a mistake. And then over here, I'm going to leave it empty. Now, why did I do that? When
because you don't want to show up.
Very good, absolutely right. I wanted to pass back actually undefined. I wanted to show that on a mouse out, that the hover should, or that the photo should go away, aka my candidate should be undefined. If I pass in nothing into a function, by default, undefined is passed back. So I'm using that knowledge that we know about nothing being passed back in a parameter as automatically by default undefined. So good call out there. So is hovered, I'm going to pass the member. Why do I pass member? Because it has that photo property I need in it to display the image. If it isn't, then I just need to pass back undefined. Now, we are now passing information correctly to a function that doesn't exist. So let's move into the next portion where we create the function. That's going to come down here. We're going to create something called is hovered. And you know what I'm going to do actually? Because I thought is hovered was going to be more of a Boolean, we're taking in a candidate object here. So I'm going to add candidate real quick to my parameters. We're going to actually change the name of is hovered. I'm going to say set member hovered. So whatever member is hovered should be passed in here. So now I'm going to take that, bring it back to HTML, paste it into both of these portions. So I'm just changing again, is hovered to set member hovered.
You check the spelling on member.
Oh no, member, not ember. There we go.
I'm still awake a little.
That was a test. That was a test. All right, so set member hovered. We're still passing in that candidate. Now what I want to do is create a class variable, almost like a flag, but not a Boolean flag, but instead a flag that contains information or does not. It's another type one. So what I'm going to do is, why does it say if include? That's interesting. All right, selected candidate. It's going to be an object, and by default, I'm just going to have it undefined. Or sorry, we'll call it hovered to keep it consistent. Hovered candidate there. All right. So if the candidate is hovered, I'm going to just set that now in here. I'll also just do that too, instead of doing all these class variables. We're already here. I'm doing this. All right. So we're setting our hovered candidate inside of our JavaScript. By the way, if you did this all within your HTML, that's fine too. There are ways that you can just pass around those variable types. I'm realizing that is another method, another possibility. So, but anyway, we're going to stay on the JavaScript side just because, or the TypeScript side, because that's the side I honestly prefer passing my data around in. So Once we have set the hovered candidate, we are now able to access that hovered candidate inside of our HTML here. So that being the case, what we want to do, it said it was display the image of the crew member. So let me go see where we need to actually display it. It says use an image with NF tag below the crew list. So let's go see where below the crew list is. I believe it's going to be below here. So I believe that's crew list. So we're going to display it below here. So we'll say img for image. We'll say star ng if equals, and this is going to be if hovered candidate is not equal undefined. If it equals undefined, then it won't show. If it does not equal undefined, it's there. So our C equals, and then double quotes in here to actually display that one, or to display the data. So we say hovered candidate dot photo. Maybe that's what we need. Oh, we can also just do source too, like that. I believe that's what they want us to go to for sure in part 3. So I'm going to change that there. So we are going to put brackets around source to tell them that it's going to be an Angular, and then we're going to say hovered candidate dot photo. So let's see if this actually works. Oh no. It might not be working. Let's see if anything is actually popping up here on inspect. Cancel. It is. Why don't you show me the errors though? No way. Is it really giving me network issues? No, that's a lie. Okay, let's go ahead and take a little quick dive into what's going on here. So we're going to go ahead and say console log. Perfect.
We need the image photo inside the div, right? In HTML file, they before div add an image tag here. Yeah. No.
I'm sorry.
The image tag we added before the closing div, right?
The hovered candidate.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. What about the hovered candidate?
I think she was asking about the hovered candidate, how it was made for the components, maybe.
How it's made for the components. So
yeah,
like
the property.
So we're just talking about the variable here, hovered candidate.
Is that what she was asking? I'm not sure.
Jasmine, I believe that was you. Is that what you're asking about the hovered candidate, where it came from?
No. I told the image tag. Now it's correct position, I think. Before.
Oh, okay. So wasn't that? Got it. Gotcha. Yeah. So you're putting it right there. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and put it where the comment was. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw it there. Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and see our console log real quick. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Oh, I guess I had to refresh. That's why we refresh. My bad. It looks like we are good here. So if I place it over here, Sally Ride. There we go. And it looks like we are getting those astronaut faces down there as we are moving back and forth. So back over here, I'm going to remove this console log. Awesome. And I might have all just had candidate spelled wrong. All right, cool. Looks like we have them in there. So that was now what I want to do. There we go. So I believe too what we could have done, I don't know if I have the mental capacity to do it. Done inline too. But right now, we're going to go with this. So any questions about this approach that we took? keep on moving forward here. All right, doing a status check here. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, I read that completely wrong. It looks like if we hover over these crew portions, that's when it should be selected. So in order for that to be fixed, what we need to do is take these two mouse overs off of this list item and bring them down here instead. So I'm going to go and put that and paste that in there. Instead of member now, we need to provide astronaut inside of where member was originally. Just like that. So let's go back and see if that is a little bit closer to what our status check should be. So we'll say Sally Ride made jumps. There we go. And see that they're both there. Awesome. So that was a little bit of a edit here. We put those down there now, and we changed member to astronaut. All right. If there's no questions, well, any questions about any of that then? It looks like we are finally to bonus missions. Oh my gosh, what a studio. So any questions at this point, because the studio is technically done, we'll move on to bonus missions here in just a second, but I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Nope. All right, going once, going twice. Let's keep on going then. 30.7.4 bonus missions to boost your Angular skills. Add one or more of the following features. Update the CSS files to make the web page look a little less bland. Now, I apologize, but we've done the CSS ones in the past. I'm going to skip this just because the studio is taking quite some time. But I will ask, is there any CSS that anybody out there wants to see? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to number 2. Nope. Okay. Number 2, don't allow more than 2 of the same items in the cargo hold. All right, we're going to go ahead and do that. We've seen this kind of validation before. We've seen this in the crew component.ts up here in this for loop. So what I'm going to do is closely use this code to do the same exact validation on our equipment. So we go over to the equipment.component.ts, we come down here to our add item, because why are we coming down here? Is because this is where we're actually adding the items in there. And this is where we're going to do the validation. I'm going to actually remove this console log too. So we don't need that in there. I'm going to paste that for loop in there. And actually, you know what? It would be easier if I just write the for loop, so we have to be changing too much. So let's just say for let 0 less than this dot items. Is it items? Oh, it's cargo hold. Okay. This dot cargo hold dot length, because remember it's an array. Say I++. Awesome. Now we need to see if this dot cargo hold of I dot name equals to the equipment item dot name, that is what's being passed up here, are the same. Then what we need to do is just return. We get out of that function ASAP. You see that we have these red squigglies around, so I'm going to add that bracket notation back in there. That's the only reason why I'm doing bracket notation. Otherwise, if we know the exact location of our keys, we should typically be doing dot notation. So there we go. We saved that. Let's hop back over to our dashboard here, and let's try to add food twice. Looks like food is not able to be added twice. It will only be able to add once. So cool. So far, we are not able to add that in there. So good, good. Let's go ahead and see this. Let's go ahead. So number 2 is completed. Top down to number 3. Allow the user to remove individual items from the hold. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. First things first, what I want to do is go over to my HTML. And when I need to declare when do they want to remove the item. So if we go over to our view, if they click on the item itself, I'm going to assume they want to remove it. They click on the item, that is an event. So we need to have an event handler there on our item. So inside of here, we want to add a click event for this li item. So I say click and then equals, and then it's going to say remove item. Inside of this function that we have not created yet, I'm going to pass in the equipment that we want to remove. So I say equipment, just like that. All right, once we're there, we need to now create this function remove item. So we hop back over to the equipment.component.ts. And underneath clear hold here, we're going to put in remove item. And then, of course, just like add item, we take in the equipment item, which is going to be an object. Now, for this one, we're going to be utilizing code up here. It's going to be going through the for loop and trying to find that item. So I use the for loop. We're going to go over each item of the cargo hold. And then in this conditional, we're going to see if the names are the same. If the names are the same, what I want to do is I want to take this .cargo hold .slice at index I and remove one item from it. This will remove the item from the cargo hold array and then return directly from the array itself immediately. If the cargo item actually, or the equipment item actually exists in the array. So let's go ahead and see if this works. Come over here, refresh. I'm going to add food once again. I can't add food more than once. I come down here, I click on food, and I see that it's now removed. Our cargo host slots filled updates, and then it looks like our mass and hold does not. So this looks like another thing I need to do. So we need to update now the mass and the hold when we are splicing the item. So what we can do is we can say this .cargo mass minus equals equipment item dot mass. Of course, we got to put in the bracket notation there. So instead of adding the mass like we did up here in the add item area, we are subtracting the mass from the class value, or sorry, from the class variable cargo mass. So let's try this again. Come back over here, we add food, we remove food, and now we see that mass and hold goes back to 0. Our spots is now 0 out of 10, and our mass remaining is now 2,000. All right. For that, that is number 3. Any questions on that? Who's still awake? Who's still with me? Yeah? Take a deep breath. All right, we're almost there. Number 4, complete the experiments component with similar features to the crew and equipment components. All right, this is going to be kind of going in turbo speed because we've gone through this twice, so I will do this, but I'm going to be doing minimal explanation. Now, when it says doing the same things as the equipment, it says possible experiments. So what we need to do, it looks like these are strings here. But let's double check that, possible experiments. We go into experiments down here. We see in the TS file that it is all just strings. This is going to make things a little bit more simple for us because we're not dealing with complex objects. We're just dealing with simplistic strings. So cool, cool, cool. The functionality that we need to do is be able to, and well, it doesn't even look like we can add anything. It looks like maybe we add things down there. So I guess we'll add accepted experiments. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need to create a section in HTML that says accepted experiments. So we come over here to our equipment in that component.html. I'm going to copy this display box that they have. I come back down here to experiments.component.ts, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in the display box. Notice that it says display box here for the CSS. I need to double check the display box exists. It does. Awesome. So our styling will stay consistent. So we come back over here to components.html and give a little space here just for us. So, and down here, I'm going to say we do not need any, we can have as many experiments as we want. That's fine. I don't know. How many experiments should we run in space? I said all the similar stuff, so we can just, how many experiments do we want to run in space? All right, so maybe an arbitrary number, 1 through 4.
4.
Oh, come on.
2.
All right, fine. We'll do 4. All right, so we'll say instead of max items, it's going to be max experiments. Cargo hold is no longer going to be that. It's going to be accepted experiments. These are just names I'm coming up with. So accepted experiments and max experiments. These are going to be the ones that we choose. This is going to be the max ones that we can choose. So now that we've created 2 variables here, we're going to come down a little bit further. So we're not going to need a full mass anymore, so that we're going to get rid of that because mass doesn't exist for experiments. And we're going to go ahead and remove that. And we'll keep in this clear hold, or, well, no, you know what? We're going to take that out too, because if they click on it, then we'll remove it. So now we're just going to be stuck with accepted experiments. Accepted experiments.length and divided by mass experiments, spots filled, awesome. And now we come down here, we got to keep changing the thing over. We're going to say accepted experiments. Say that's the variable, and we'll just call this experiment. Call this remove experiment. And experiment, remember, is just a set of strings, so we take out the dot name because it's no longer an object. So there we go. Experiment should just come up here. It's going to be our list of experiments. Nice, nice, nice. So we are good so far, except that we are missing a lot of those variables within our TS file. So if we come back over here, we're going to see if there's actually any complaints in our console, which I'm surprised that there wouldn't be. Yeah, there's all the complaints. Yeah, can't read properties of undefined of length, things like this. You're going to see a lot of issues here because we have not set up any of these new variables. Those new variables being accepted experiments, max experiments, things like that. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's start with accepted experiments. Go to TS. Accepted experiments is going to just be a string array of just the experiments that have been accepted, meaning they've been clicked on. The other one that we need to add is max experiments, which we said is going to be a number of 4. So there we go. Let's save this, go back over to our code, and it looks like that red is now gone because we defined those variables. So awesome to see. Moving on, now we need to add the functionality. The 2 functionalities that we talked about is that we need to do an add experiment and a remove experiment. That will go consistently with the the equipment and the crew that we did as well. So let's go and do an add equipment. So I'm going to say add equipment, add experiment. Experiment, and then it should be experiment name, or just experiment. It's going to be just a string. Why is it going to be just a string? Because remember, experiments up here is an array of strings. It's not an object in experiments. It's an array of strings. So you need to take in a string. So if now we need to do the validate, is the experiment already chosen? This is where it's much easier with array of strings. We can just do an if accepted experiments dot includes experiment. Then we return just like that because the experiment is already inside of that array. We don't have to go through a whole for loop anymore, which is so nice. We can just do the dot includes instead. So if it is not in the array, if this dot max experiments is greater than this dot accepted experiments dot length. Oh, well, I'm sorry. If max experiments is less than or equal to the accepted experiments, then we need to return as well, meaning that we cannot go over 4 or whatever this number is set to up here. If both of these are true, or I'm sorry, if both of these don't return, then finally we can say this dot experiments dot push our experiments, or our experiment there. Remember that experiment being this parameter up here. So this is add experiment, and now we do the remove experiment. In this one, we can say remove experiment, take in the experiment name, which is going to be again a string, just like that, and now we need to remove it from the accepted experiments if it's already there. That being the case, what we can do is that we can say let index equal this dot experiments dot index of our experiment. If index, so remember, if it's not inside of the array, it returns a -1. So if index is greater than -1, then this dot experiments dot splice index and remove 1. So it's not -1. Then it's somewhere in the array, and we can use splice to remove it. And this will remove it from the accepted. Oop, I didn't do the right array here. There we go, accepted experiments. We need to remove the experiment from the accepted experiments. Remember, those are the ones that the people chose. So there we go. We have our add and remove experiment completed. So final thing I want to do is that I'm going to do a selected class here as well. Someone give me a favorite color real quick. Somebody who's still alive out there.
Yellow.
Oh, yeah.
Yellow it is. All right, that's going to be our selected color. So now that we have our CSS done, we have our brain, our TS stuff done, let's go ahead and go back and finish up our HTML. All right, so these are all of our possible experiments that we can select. What we want to do is we want to say, if they click this, then they wanted to add it. So we say equals, then we say add experiment. And then we add in the experiment that's being looped through, which is just experiment. So we say, oops, we just say experiment there. All right, let's go and see if this works. We're just doing add right now. Oh, come on, buddy. What's going on with you?
I think in last you had curly bracket, right? Instead of normal bracket.
Oh, I did. Yep, thank you very much. Awesome, awesome. All right, let's go and see this in action. Oh, looks like I'm adding it to the wrong one because I am probably brain dead. So as what I just saw is I clicked something and added to this experiments list up here. What that's indicating to me is that I'm adding to the pre-existing experiments, not actually adding to the accepted experiments. So what I need to do is go back over to TS here, and I come over here to the add experiment. It's exactly what I thought because I don't know what I'm doing. So there we go. We're gonna go and refresh this. Click on it again, and now we see that our stuff comes down here, and these are our accepted experiments. So if I click on these, nothing, I forgot, we did actually implement remove as well. Come back over to the HTML, we already saw that in experiments, we provided that remove experiment. So remember, we were renaming everything. So we already just renamed this, we created the function, we stayed consistent. This work was already done for us. And that's why this works. The last thing we want to do is, if it is selected at the top, go ahead and highlight it so people know that it's already it's already selected. So what we can do there, we can say class.selected, and then we can provide a Boolean. That Boolean is going to be a little bit easier. It's going to say experiments.includes experiment. Again, we can use the .includes here a little bit easier with JavaScript because we're dealing with an array of strings. So this can make our conditional a lot more simplistic, which is nice. And what I actually need to do is put a not operator here. So if it's not included, then it hasn't been selected. Let's try that again. There we go. Let's go and click on satellite launch. It actually does that then. No, I was right. Oh, because it should be. Wow, Kyle. Okay. Should go make another pot of coffee. Accepted experiments dot includes. There we go. Accepted experiments dot includes then the experiment name. That's what we should be doing there. It's like, what am I doing wrong? There we go. Now it's working. It's a little bit of bright yellow, so I'm actually going to change it up just so we can see a little bit better. We'll go ahead and just keep it with the orange there. That was a good color. Come back over here. There we go. So as we select them, we are able to see that it's orange. And we're not able to select it more than 4. Come down here, we can unselect them. And there we go. Our functionality is going. Anything on that? Okie dokie. Then we are going to continue on here. I believe we are finally down to number 5 here. Add other data to the astronaut objects and center this data below the crew photo. Well, I don't even know what information they want to add really too much. Anybody have anything that they want to see on number 5? This looks a little bit just like some CSS stuff. Anything. All right, what it's trying to tell you is that in the crew.component.ts here, what we could do if we wanted to, we could add like, if you wanted to, times in space 9 or something like that. You can add more to the object if you want to. That's what they're saying there. And then you can center the information below the actual object itself, or below the actual picture itself. That's just a little bit of CSS styling, and you've all done object manipulation. So in that case, if anybody wants to see anything specific, I will absolutely go into it. But I know it is getting late, so any final thing that we want to see, talk about, continue with? Okay. Are we sure? All right. In that case, after a long studio, we are completed here. So this is where we are going to stop. Of course, we had to save the best for last, didn't we? So that is it, everyone. I'm going to go and stop the recording now.